Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second talk of the first session for today, second day. We're here to see Carol Willing to talk about finding your groove in contributing to CPython and beyond. So, do you ever hear a jumble of jargony noise when you're looking at a mailing list? Sometimes it happens that way. So, here, Carol.
Hi, welcome. My name's Carol Willing, and I'm very pleased to see you here today. I am actually not a core developer of CPython. This fine gentleman here is, but that doesn't make me any less of a genuine contributor to core Python. My passion in life is outreach and education, and in particular, onboarding people in engineering and software development. So what I'm hoping to do today is inspire you, give you a walk through two of my favorite things, jazz music and writing software. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll feel comfortable and confident enough to find your groove, whatever it is, within CPython. So there's 4 key steps. One is commit, and it's not the golden, shiny commit that, you know, you're out in lights and the trumpets are going and the trombones are playing and all of a sudden you see your name there in the commit list on CPython. That's great, but I'm talking about a different kind of commit, committing to yourself and to the community. Another key success factor is to jump into it. A lot of times we're afraid of jumping into things that feel a little new or uncomfortable, but it's okay. I'm not feeling 100% comfortable up here, but I think we're going to make it through. So my passion, in addition to jazz music, is playing guitar in a guitar orchestra. And I play last section, last chair, and I absolutely love it because I learn things from other people, and it's just a lot of fun. I've been working with the core mentorship mailing list with core Python for about 1.5 years, and have learned a ton, have met a lot of really nice core developers and other contributors along the way. And what I'm hoping to do today is to help you find a rhythm to get started. I'm going to talk about some of the resources that are out there already that have been developed for contributing. And what I'm not going to do is dive into a deep technical analysis of core Python because we have the sprints going up and we have some resources at the end of the presentation that will probably help you really get that. So just to recap, you want to find your groove. This is actually my son Jake when he was in 7th grade, first time playing the trombone in his bathrobe in the backyard, and you know, he was committed to it even though he was holding the trombone completely incorrectly. He jumped into it. He was finding his rhythm and improvising because what he was doing was trying to play the Michigan fight song. He had played the flute before, but he was trying to play the Michigan fight song on a trombone that he didn't know how to play and didn't know how to hold. Happily today, he's 18 years old. He's a very good little jazz trombonist, and it's been a journey over the last 7 years for him. So the first thing, let's talk a little bit more about, is committing yourself. And one of the great things we have in the Python community is a lot of resources and organizations that are willing to help and teach people. Open Hatch is one that's near and dear to my heart. I think it was my first exposure to the Python community, and I highly encourage you to check out the work that they do. So we talked about, Kebmo actually had a really great song that talked about taking ownership of how awesome you are and how not to be afraid. Imposter syndrome or ooh, maybe I'm not good enough kind of jumps up at times for all of us. But each of you has an individual perspective that's valuable and helpful to the community. So I really encourage you to share it with everyone else. Something that is awesome to do is not just to commit to yourselves, but to commit to others and to other people in the community. It's perhaps a little known fact that the core developers have several key commitments that they make to the community, being respectful, reviewing patches in a timely manner. I know. And there's a few others in the core mentorship guide. And I think they honestly, despite the chuckles over here, I think they try their best to do that. But we can be better. And as a community, we can be better. So they're committing time to you, you're committing time to them. You know, the community as a whole benefits as long as you're doing something that resonates with you. And although this talk is about CorePython, really the talk is more about finding a place, finding something that rocks your world, mine, jazz music, playing last chair in my guitar orchestra, and playing with all kinds of cool things, software related. So let's talk a little bit more about jumping into it. Because at some point, if you're learning an instrument or learning a new software language, you have to just kind of go for it. And fortunately, as in music, there's a method book that typically when you're learning an instrument that will guide you through the process of learning that instrument. In the case of CorePython, several years ago, Brett and others have refined over the years the Python Developer's Guide, and it actually is a really good resource. It can be a little overwhelming at first because it's fairly long, but the quick start is actually pretty straightforward, and in pretty much 3 steps, you can get the CorePython source code and build it on your machine locally and run the tests, which I think is pretty cool. So you might be wondering, okay, what kind of gear do I need to contribute to CorePython? Well, the good news is find an editor, any editor, that you feel comfortable with. Any operating system is cool. Linux, OS X, Windows, there's value in all of them. Know some command line basics. As much as we would like the core developers to tell us how CD works or how to make a directory, that's probably not the best use of their time because there's other organizations within the community that can do that. You need to know the basics of Git and or Mercurial, and there are actually resources that will help you translate if you know Git, what the command is in Mercurial, and they're really not that different except for in branches, and that's really not something that you're going to use initially when you go to contribute. Then you want to kind of check out the sheet music, which in this case I'm going to say is the CorePython source code. And there's 2 great places to do it. One is the official repository, where you would use Mercurial to check it out, and that is in fact the command. And then there's a CPython semi-official read-only mirror and on Git. So for those of you that feel more comfortable with Git, just to get started, it's a great option. And it is actually very up-to-date. So in music, you got to learn a little music theory to add to the instruments that you have and the gear that you have. And one good lesson in theory when it comes to CorePython is to understand the source code directory initially, to understand that docs are going to be found primarily in the same folder. Tests, different operating systems will have their own folders, and the standard library will be in its folder. Use your ears and then connect your brain to those ears, because one of the things in music to be a good musician is you need to listen to other musicians, other great music, and one of the great things with the Python community is we have a fabulous resource in pyvideo.org, and there are some excellent talks from prior events, PyCons or regional conferences that talk about both contributing to core Python or different technical aspects that people have worked on, and I highly encourage you to check those out. Join a band. It's always more fun to play with other people. There is a core mentorship website and mailing list where you can safely ask questions and get encouragement, help finding a patch, or join a whole bunch of different combos like Python Dev on IRC, the different mailing lists, welcoming spaces. Sprints are always awesome because you learn a lot in a very compressed amount of time. And for those times where you need that little extra pick-me-up because you've been working on something and it's frustrating you, Positive Python is a good IRC channel to just get that little boost of confidence. So we talked about committing, jumping into it. So now let's find your rhythm. Let's find something to actually work on. So go out, be wrong and strong or loud and proud, which is not the same as overbearing and obnoxious, and recognize that you're going to make mistakes along the journey. We're all human, but take advantage of actually trying something. So select your solo. In my case, documentation was a place where I feel is really valuable and a great place to start. The docs are actually use Sphinx. To make the docs, it's just typing make HTML once you're in the doc folder, so that's kind of nice. The basics of restructured text, you can kind of learn from the context of the documentation as well as in the dev guide. There's some great tips as well as on the restructured text. So you can look for an issue in the issue tracker. You can read a document and offer to make a helpful change. Say you look at the Mac documents and they're not quite up to date with the current state of the Mac operating system, then offer a change. You can also localize documentation and make it more helpful for other people around the world. Testing is also another great way to get started contributing to core Python. Running the tests on your system, remember if we go back to the beginning of the talk with the dev guide and the method book and the quick start, is one of the 3 steps. And to run the tests on your system, you may actually find a testing issue just by virtue of the fact that your system does something differently than one of the build bots had built or something else. And you know, part of the goal with testing is to try and keep the build bots green, so anything you can do to move that along, that's always awesome. You know, there are also infrastructure projects that you can contribute to, things like the issue tracker itself. You can very politely ask on core mentorship if anybody has an issue. Sometimes the core developers will actually post an issue saying, hey, if anybody's interested in this, I have a patch that might be, or I have an issue that might be suitable for a new person to core Python to work on. And then also, there is a need for reviewing patches within core Python, and I am hoping during the sprints we will kind of take my passion of onboarding people and beyond to inspire people to write some additional documentation on how to review patches, equip you guys with the tools that you need to review them, to listen to each other, and kind of encourage people getting onboarded into the project, and people, once they're onboarded, to continue to grow with the project. Now, I know many of you may have the most amazing feature in the world, and it should be in Python tomorrow. Actually, Python has a way for getting new and amazing features into Python, and those are through the PEPs. The most current release schedule and content is in PEP 478, and one thing as a contributor that you might want to be cognizant of is not to, the day before the release is going to be firmed up, ask your questions on the Python dev list, because you might get very curt responses, and it's not you, it's just people are busy doing other things. So in general, be cordial or perhaps move on. It's always nicer to work with people that care not just about the code, but others as well. Improvise. Improvise is actually pretty easy. You just kind of, something comes up and you respond to it and you kind of work around it. And the key of it is people, people, and people. Typically, when you hit a roadblock, a person is going to be much better at helping you through that roadblock, because there's a lot of stuff that's just not written down. So, Paul Desmond had talked about being the world's slowest alto sax player and also being incredibly quiet. And I have to say, I'm probably the world's slowest contributor to open source software, and maybe even the slowest person to learn guitar. And I'm also a little bit quiet, so this is a little out of my comfort zone. But it doesn't really matter if you're slow, as long as you're making a positive contribution and doing your best. And I think for the fact that Paul Desmond thought he was the slowest alto sax player, he was probably one of the best alto sax players. So pretty cool. So just to recap, find your Python groove, try a sprint, build your knowledge, share it with other people, embrace some gypsy jazz. This is in here because last year I did a poster session on music, and Adrian Holovady and I had a great conversation for about 45 minutes on music, and it was really inspiring. So I'm not going to play the video now, but it's like a claymation done in Canada, cool music, very fun. And PyLadies has some stuff for playing it forward with contributing to core Python. We've been working for the last few months on coming up with what I will call the Jazzy Groove Guide to CPython contribution. Very similar in spirit to Hitchhiker's Guide to Python. What it is meant to be is not an official core Python document, but rather a way to help you get started finding resources that already exist within core Python and in the community. And we will be sprinting on that. I'll also be at the Sunday's poster session if people have questions. We've kind of come up with a cool little Spotify Python contributor groove playlist, because it's always more fun to have code in the background, music in the background while you're coding. And I just want to thank the fabulous people that I have to work with in San Diego, and shout out to Paul Collins, who's been incredibly helpful and can't be here for family reasons, but good family reasons. The core Python community, who've been very thoughtful and helpful to me in the last couple of years. My fabulous friends at Open Hatch, who really have a big, huge heart and requests that do a great job for onboarding people. Of course, the PyLadies, and then the Pythonistas that came before, currently, here, far away. You really have built not just a great, fun language to program in, but a community that's really, truly fun to be a part of. So thank you. The slides will be up shortly, as well as the source code and documentation for the new guide. And I hope you'll enjoy the journey through whatever path you take with Core Python. And do we have any time for questions? And I'm going to invite Brett.
We have quite some time for questions, so we have about 8-9 minutes for questions.
Excuse me?
We have about 8 or 9 minutes for questions.
Oh, cool.
So
I'm going to ask some of the core developers to come up with me.
So please. So everybody, thanks to Carol for that fabulous talk. And
Hi there.
Hi, Carol. Appreciate you giving the talk today.
Thank you.
I've got a question about sort of digesting the source code itself. I don't have a C background. I started learning with Python and trying to figure out where to get started as far as digesting the source code and sort of actually understanding how things build on top of each other. I was wondering if you had any advice on where to kind of start digging in and to kind of build from there.
Okay. It's an excellent question and something that I've thought a lot about because it is a complex code base. Actually, the very last slide I had was, I'm going to maybe just play it and leave it in the background. No, it doesn't want to do it. But so a couple resources. Some of the great reference docs on the websites, as well as some of the books that are out there that really dig into the standard library, are good for context. There have been some talks that are on pyvideo.org that kind of walk you through in a deeper level the source tree. It's one of those that, you know, like much like music, it takes a while to kind of see where things are and to kind of build your understanding. Clearly, sprints are a great place. Asking questions on core mentorship is also a great place because the devs that are working in a particular area can actually guide you to the best resources. So I hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
I do have a concrete.
You do. Good.
Which is to start with C eval C, which is the core of the bytecode interpreter, and then you'll get totally confused. And from there, you'll sort of branch out into the pieces that will bring more clarity. If you want someplace to start. But finding a guide is a better way, but if you want to do it on your own, that's where I'd start.
And this, by the way, is our David Murray. He has been very supportive of the PyLadies community and also core mentorship. He does a lot of the documentation for core Python. So thank you. And the rest of you jump in as you like. All right, next question.
Hi, Carol. Thank you for your talk. Thank you for talking about jazz and Paul Desmond. Not enough people know him. People don't know that he wrote Take 5, not Dave Brubeck. So add that to the playlist.
Yes, it's already there.
Oh, good. And on a more serious note, in the keynote this morning, there was some discussion about processes to make this whole onboarding easier and more welcoming. I think you're doing that. You're encouraging people. You're making that more welcoming. But what else could people do? Do you want to comment on the discussion this morning?
Sure. Well, I think part of the reason, I guess it was almost 1.5 years ago, some of us were in a channel for either OPW or Google Summer of Code to help onboard new student developers. And through that, I realized, okay, there are resources out there, but it wasn't completely clear to me. So as I was working with OpenHatch and the fact that I love C code and was learning Python, was digging into the, how does the process work? Because it would be pretty presumptuous of me to, be brand new and say, hey, you guys should do this and you should do that and this is wrong, because I don't quite understand the whole scope of the everything that goes on. I do think that from a personal standpoint that there could be more people focused on the onboarding process and processes in general beyond these core developers. People come with different skill sets. I don't know that I would ever want to be a core developer. I would be totally stoked to be like a core mentor or a core look at the process person. So I think it's sort of expanding the way we look at core Python and what it means to be a core contributor. And I think there's room to be a core contributor without having a commit bit, because you might not need the commit bit. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Lynn.
Nice job. I'm just going to say something that's not a question, but I want to make sure that everyone here knows that it's actually Carol's work, the groovy CPython kind of guide that she's like sort of been working on for the past couple months and is giving to PyLadies to kind of grow with. So I just want to make sure that you take credit for it.
Thank you. But I would like to share the credit with many people, because I would not have learned how to use Sphinx or structured text or even know. But I do appreciate it. But I think part of who I am is really somebody who really cares about the community. And I don't need any, like being on stage almost made me want to throw up before. So I don't need that, but I do like sharing it. So if you see me in the hallways and, I do much better one-on-one or small groups, and I would be happy to chat about it. Thank you, Lynn.
Hi. So my question is a little bit more specific in terms of where contributions, either right now or in general, are most welcome. So, for example, you talked about a really good place to start being the CEval and checking that out. But you also talked about, it is a big code base, and there's lots of places to, either optimize or, write C implementations of, different data structures, stuff like that. Like right now, or, in the near future, are there particular areas that would be most useful to sort of...
To focus in on?
Yeah.
Well, I know one of them was mentioned this morning. I think it was by Steve. People that use Windows, have Windows experience, that would be an excellent place to really start contributing.
Yeah, the other thing is we have a list in the developer's guide of all of the modules in the standard library and who the experts are for those modules. So finding a module that either has no experts or has one expert and adopting that module, learning how that module works, looking for bugs in the tracker for that module, and reviewing patches or making patches for that module. That's the most helpful thing that could be done.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll add one other one as well, which is that a lot of us now are actually starting to look more closely at the processes and tooling and how all that works. And so in terms of immediate gratification, some of the tooling stuff can actually be quicker because
Absolutely.
That's web services that go live within days rather than releases which can take months or years.
Right, and it's sort of giving back and making it easier to contribute and making it easier for more people to contribute. And so there's, I know Donald and Nick and other people who've been working very hard on it have been very helpful and receptive, and they really do want to make it so that you can contribute easily. We're not there yet, but we will be. So I think, any more comments, Christian?
Yeah, one comment more. You don't need to know any C code to help out. You don't even need to know any Python coding. We really need people who help with documentation, to write guides for new people, for improve the documentations. And if you want to learn C, the Python C code is actually very, very good. When I started with CPython core development about 6-7 years ago, I was a really crappy C developer, and I learned a lot during the time, especially writing platform code that works on lots of different kinds of machines. So if you want to learn how to write machine-independent C code, Python is a very good way to do that.
Excellent point, Christian. Zach, you want to say anything? Nope.
Oh, thank you very much, Carol, and all these Python core developers. Thank you for a wonderful talk.
Thank you, everybody. Go sprint.
Is it okay? Now there's a 10-minute break, and we're back for open source for newcomers in the next talk in 9 minutes.